we have exposed the fire narrative. Right here on this channel, we have shown how the old world buildings, the previous civilizations work. Hold the fire narrative so many times. We have also shown how these fires are still happening today. We have built a massive team here, all of us. We are now able to expose these fires that are happening all around the world in real time, live, just like we did on July 11th, 2024. We have shown how these fires continuously happen while the structure is under some sort of restoration project, where we have also exposed that these so-called restoration projects are, of course, in my opinion, planned demolition projects or destruction projects. Over and over, where a fire breaks out in the spire of the French cathedral, just like we exposed live with the Copenhagen Stock Exchange or the Toronto Church. Same thing in Cleveland, where I'm just gonna let you know, we are all taking our power back. We are taking the truth back right now in real time. And if you didn't know this already, we are the news now, where we are told that the blaze erupted at the top of the spire of the Gothic Our Lady of the Assumption Cathedral, a cathedral that was, of course, currently undergoing restoration, and of course, considered a significant piece of French medieval architecture. Now, my question is, who started this fire? We are never told how these random fires begin. It's always a mystery, every single time. Even though we have cameras all over the place, every single person has a cell phone that has a camera on it, but nobody catches it on camera. Nobody's there to ever witness who started the fire to burn down a massive old world building. There should have been a witness, considering we are told that the cathedral was evacuated following the outbreak of the flames. So we had people in there, and every single person has a camera in their pocket. And we're being told that the fire broke out at the tip of the spire, which isn't even made of wood, but rather metal. So we have fires breaking out in old world buildings, fires that light metal on fire. These are deliberate attacks, in my opinion, on specific old world technology or information. I believe it is the spire, like we have shown, that still held free energy from the old world and was being destroyed in a destruction project taking place right in front of our faces. And then we get a mayor named Nicholas Mayer, where he tells us that the fire's origin is unknown at this point. Again, they never disclose this information, even though we all know that there were 4 people working on the spire, proving that this is a cover-up for these 4 individuals that were planted in this location to complete the destruction project. Again, this is all in my opinion, but it's based on the information that we are all told. Check out the front of this place. Could you even imagine the donkey power in the 1200s that it would have taken to get this place built? I mean, look at the architecture. It's incredible. And take a look at this picture. We have shown all over the world where they chop the heads off of these statues. We have even seen and shown how earthquakes chop the heads off of statues and send them rolling down the hill. Arms, legs, feet, and hands have never had an issue, but the heads of these statues from the old world are removed over and over. Why is this? Well, what if these heads show what the previous civilization actually looked like? What if they show a very different past than the one that we've all been told? I believe that this is exactly what's going on, where we see not one statue's head, but we have 5 statues' heads chopped off in this small section alone. Deliberate attacks on our history, over and over. We see it all over the world. Again, even more incredible detail here at the top. And where did his head go? And what is that thing behind him? Could you even imagine one of these being constructed today? The structures that we were building in the 17 and 1800s do not line up with the mainstream narrative at all, where James Buchanan, the 15th president of the United States, was born in a shack. And he wasn't the only one. That the very next president was Abe Lincoln, who was also born in a shed, where it looks like his didn't even get color or steps to the front door. And I know both of them did not have a bathroom. They had to go outside for that. So let's remember, this is what's going on in the 17 and 1800s. This is where people were living. And then we go to this church's narrative. And after everything that we have seen, this should open some eyes. When the first church is believed to have been underneath the present cathedral. But we are, of course, not told, where we know here, and have shown many times, what is underneath most of these old churches. Again, we are told multiple churches on the same site, which is another repeating narrative. Now, this narrative is taking us back to the year 395. 395, on the dot, where they built a large basilica. And it was, of course, supposedly built on the same exact site, where they waited 360 years to do anything. And then in the year 755, they construct several courtyards and buildings around the church, including a palace for the archbishop. All in the year 755. They were just busy constructing palaces. This is what we are told. And then they give us this ridiculous story that Vikings raided the place and damaged the cathedral, where this was documented in the Donkeys Inc. archives, a weekly magazine written by Feather Under Moonlight, just running around chasing that local duck to get his feathers, just so they could write it all down. This information that we read today, about the year 395, exactly 1,500 years before the power tool. This story is nonsense, telling us that they enlarged the cathedral in the year 650. They got a special guest in 769 with poetry night on Tuesdays. Now, a much more realistic narrative is that there was a previous civilization here, humans, that held incredible technology, everything that we have today, and so much more. A civilization that was constructing massive tunnel systems, going down 18 levels under our feet, and most likely more. A civilization that created palaces, matching their level of knowledge. The way that the mainstream narrative brushes things off without any evidence is ridiculous at this point. Acting like we should just believe that 200 years ago, people were primitive, riding around by donkey, dirt roads everywhere, presidents born in shacks with porta potties outside. And then 2,000 years ago, they just construct palaces that last forever. And we haven't even gotten to the best part. In 1822, right when we were all here to see, lightning started a fire that destroyed the spire of the central tower. The exact same spire that we just showed that was just randomly burning down. And nobody knows how it started. And in 1905, a new law made the cathedral property of the French government. It's very interesting. When it was bombed like 30 years later, twice, by Allied bombs. And then they tried to destroy it again 5 years later, when it was bombed 7 more times by the British. And then the USA just needed to get involved, of course. The US Army Air Force set fire to the tower. The bells melted. Very interesting. If you'd like me to cover the old world bells in the future, let me know. So this place is just fine until our civilization starts back up and they start going up there and melting bells and bombing the old world's work over and over. And then, of course, we know what they found underneath the church. When in 1985, excavations were carried out beneath the church and its surroundings. How incredible is it to know what these sentences really mean? Before this research, we would have looked at that sentence and been very confused, thinking it was maybe a one-off. But now we know that they did this all over the world, finding things, tunnels, structures, and catacombs, where it goes on to say that they uncovered vestiges of the earlier buildings and foundations of another cathedral. And we all know that they found so much more. Possibly networks of tunnels, multiple floors, connecting all of the old world buildings in the area, and maybe even more. Underground living spaces, underground structures, catacombs, technology, gold, and so much more. And then, of course, we have the fire right here from July 11th, 2024. A tax, in my opinion, of the old world's work. Structures and buildings, sites that were meant for us, in my opinion. Places that were given to us that have since been taken over and destroyed by a group that seems to want to hide the past from us. A group that seems like they're on a strange mission that is fully focused on them gaining more and more control while giving us less and less. Who knows if that's true, but it sure looks like it is, if I'm being honest. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but it feels like the movie The Lion King, where everything was great where they lived, with Mufasa in charge. The grass was green, they had peace, and then Scar took over, and the place just goes down the drain. A little season. Is this what the movie The Lion King is really telling us? Who knows? But after everything that we know, it doesn't seem too far off. And now they have our little doorway cut into the doors. Doors are constructed proportionate to the size of the individual using it. And I want to show you the inside of this place. The ceiling is incredible. Remember, there's never a mistake in the 795s. They were perfect every time, withstanding bombs, fires, and the rest. So check this out. Here's the cathedral that we've been talking about today. And look right behind it. We have two more. This one on the left is currently undergoing its own destruction project, as we can see right here. Here it is without all the scaffolding around it. This is the Abbey Church, finding this place in 750. And this third church, right here on the right, finished in 1521. No issues in the construction. A masterpiece from the 14 and 1500s. And this one was the replacement, if you can believe it. We have Master Robin and an incredible area here in France. Honestly, it's terrible that these fires keep happening all over the world to these incredible structures. And nobody's ever held accountable for lighting them on fire. And they don't even tell us what company is in charge of these supposed restoration projects. Who is being hired to do these restoration projects? Here we are in Texas, more specifically, 414 St. Joseph Street, Gonzales, Texas. And why are we here? Well, they have the Gonzales County Courthouse. And in my opinion, the narrative is lying. Are we all ready? Here we go. The contract was awarded to Furman Morin on June 26, 1894. But wait, there's something weird going on here. We're told that this wasn't the first courthouse on this site. This is the second building to serve as the county courthouse. Well, what do you mean this wasn't the first one? What happened to the first one? The first Gonzales County Courthouse burned down on December 3rd, 1893. Do you notice how fast they tried to throw that in there? It was like they thought we wouldn't notice or something. Of course we will. This is what we do. Look at how they worded it, too. They didn't even say the first building or the first courthouse. They just quickly say, the first burned on December 3rd, 1893. And they just want to move on like nothing happened. So we get the nod. Another fire story. Very interesting. And also the clear giveaway that this is a building from the past civilization. In my opinion, and a reminder that there was never a fire here on this site. This is simply a nod to their group that this building is from the old world. Now, let's continue shredding this nonsense apart. We are told that the second county courthouse was completed on April of 1896. The contract was awarded in June of 1894. They get their superintendent for the construction in 1895. And then in April of 1896, the building is done. And this all happens in basically 2 years after the first one burned down. And it's weird, because it takes almost as much time to find the superintendent as it does to actually build the entire building. And it lasts forever. So let's get this straight. They are telling us that December 1893, the first one is in flames, and we have no idea who built that one or anything about it. And don't ask any questions about that one. And then 6 months later, it's gone and all cleaned up by June of 1894. And the contract is ready to roll. And from June 1894, we wait until some point in time in 1895, so at least 6 months, but could have been 18 months. Since they don't share the information, we have to speculate. So let's meet in the middle at 12 months to find a construction guy. And then he knocks this thing out somehow by April of 1896. Who believes that he did this in less than a year? How many people worked for him? It's just weird that they tell us that he was just an owner of a quarry that had limestone in it. Now all of a sudden, he is a construction superintendent guy that builds massive courthouses in a year. Wow, the 1800s were incredible. You could truly be anything you want back then. Amazing. And a total joke of a story. This is absolute insanity that this kind of stuff is what we are supposed to believe actually happened. We all understand that in order to build a massive courthouse, you would need to get all the materials there. We would need to have a proper amount of construction workers that are properly trained. This quarry owner can't just go build it himself. We would need the proper equipment. Incredible architecture. The planning had to be perfect. Using the specs that they give us on this courthouse, I asked ChatGPT a question, and the answer was eye-opening. I asked hypothetically, how long would it take to build a courthouse in 1895? And how many men would you need? I asked if it could give me a breakdown of how much material would be needed, and also include other details that are important in constructing a courthouse that covers 2.7 acres. I explained that it is a building in a Romanesque revival style, with eclectic details, meaning it covers other types of architecture designs, and that it will be built with red brick and white limestone trim. Now, these are the specs that we are given from the mainstream narrative. This is what they tell us. They tell us this information because they have to. The thing is literally sitting here looking right at us. For anyone that wants to go look at it, you can walk right up to it and see it. Or you can see a picture of it as we are right now. So let's see what this AI tells us. We are told that constructing a courthouse in 1895, in the specs that they stated, would have been a significant undertaking. And here is the breakdown. Just the design and planning would have taken pretty much a year. Just because it's 1895, you still need permits and approvals. This happened in 1895. This isn't cavemen days, where you just get to build massive buildings and not tell anyone about it. So the fact that they're ignoring this part of the story over and over is crazy. This would have taken another couple months. So then we move on to the materials. We are told that the amount of red brick needed would depend on the design and size of the courthouse. Courthouses that cover 2.7 acres could use hundreds of thousands to millions of bricks. This is an unbelievable amount of material just for bricks alone. The process in getting these materials to the site is not easy. So then the white limestone trim. 100,000 cubic feet of limestone. The wood for interior elements, including flooring, stairs, and doors. A substantial amount of wood would be required. Then we will need steel and glass, and not just any glass. They have to be perfect for windows, in the Romanesque revival style. Now, of course, the best part, in my opinion, because they don't even mention any people that help this quarry owner guy. The labor, the number of workers needed would vary. But constructing such a massive courthouse might require hundreds of laborers. Hundreds? And not a mention of one in this story? And this isn't even to build it in a year. This is just saying to build it in a respectable timeline. So to build it in a year, there had to be way more than hundreds of workers, like we're told. Amazing. Okay, you would need bricklayers, carpenters, masons. Oh, did I say that? Steelworkers, and general laborers. When we are told that slaves and prisoners built these places in a year, just remember this and ask yourself if you think this is true or not. Now we have the construction time. Given the scale and complexity, construction could take several years, perhaps 3 to 5 years. The Romanesque revival style, with its ornate details, would require careful craftsmanship, which takes time. So these workers had to have been trained and been good at it, especially finishing it in a year. This is insane. How were these workers not world-renowned? Wouldn't there be statues of them? They probably could have made the statues themselves in their backyards in a couple of days, since they were so good at it. And now, of course, we have the ridiculous part of the transportation. Transporting materials to the construction site. And before we get into this, I want to mention this, that they don't mention this in the story. And I think they don't on purpose, because it is so insane. Here we go. Transporting materials to the construction site would require horses, wagons, and likely a nearby source of limestone. Okay, so the horses and wagons moved the 100,000 cubic feet of limestone from the quarry. What a joke. Now they will need tools, of course. You can't do this without tools. So here's the tools and equipment section. Tools of the time would include hammers, chisels, saws, cranes, and various other hand tools. Just hammering and chiseling away in 1895 to 1896 with their horses and wagons. The fact that they tell us these buildings go up all over the world in a year is such a lie, in my opinion. You'd need a source of water for mixing mortar, and for the workers. If it's a large project, which this one definitely is, you might even need on-site housing for the workers, which they don't have on-site housing for the workers. Have you ever seen a narrative say this? No. They ignore the actual logistics in every narrative. You need people to build these places, and people need things, such as housing, food, water. This is common sense, yet never mentioned. Stone carvers and artisans would be required for this work. What was their names? Did the quarry owner do that himself? No. Which company had pro stone carvers and artisans? And of course, supervision. You'd need a skilled supervisor and project managers to ensure the work proceeds smoothly and to quality standards. And this is literally the only part that we are given. The only part we are given is the person that should be watching over all of the things that actually have to happen. I'm going to put this in sports terms. They're basically telling us the name of the coach for the Patriots, and then forgetting to tell us all about Tom Brady, or the coach's name of the Lakers and the Bulls, and not saying anything about Kobe, LeBron, Michael Jordan, or Dennis Rodman. All we get is Phil Jackson and Frank Vogel. This is insane. This is not working anymore. So I asked it to be more specific with the timeline. I said, so in all, how long would this all take? It responded with this. Given the complexity and scale of constructing a courthouse, covering 2.7 acres in the Romanesque Revival style, with red brick and white limestone trim, in 1895, the entire process could take 1 year to just design and plan it. Another several months to permitting and approvals, several more months to a year for the materials, and 3 to 5 years to build the building. So in total, it mathematically and logistically should take anywhere from 4.5 years to 7.5 years. This is unbelievable, considering so many times we are told that a building goes down in a fire and then another one is built in a few months. This kind of brushing it off with a few months kind of thing isn't working anymore. And I don't want to end the episode yet. I want to go even deeper and even more specific. So I asked, how many horses would they need for this project? And here we go. The horses would be needed for 6 major things in this project in 1895. Transporting, milling and lifting, general labor, site grading and excavation, water and power, cranes and heavy lifting, and getting the cranes there to the site, of course. This would take 20 to 30 horses to finish the project in 4.5 to 7.5 years, not 1 year. So we all understand. They would need way more than 30 horses. And we all understand that horses need water. Remember, this is for 30 horses for possibly 7.5 years. I want to make that point extremely clear. This is not the 1 year timeline that we're told. Now here we go. Let's absolutely destroy the narrative and end it forever. That any building anywhere in the world, like this one, could not be simply built in a year and just brushed off with zero explanation. How much water would the horses actually need? This is a key point that cannot be ignored, like it is in the mainstream narrative. A typical horse would drink anywhere from 5 to 15 gallons of water per day for a project like this. This is to properly keep the horses hydrated, or they will die, especially in Texas, where it's extremely hot in the summer months. For only 30 horses, you would need 300 gallons of water per day. This is only 10 horses over 7.5 years. Where is all this water coming from? Why is this massive point ignored? The point alone proves that this project did not happen in a year. This is such a horrible slip up for the narrative. And it is the most important part of the logistic project that needs to be taken care of. Without the water supply for the main transportation for the project, none of this happens anywhere in the world in the 1800s. From this point on, a narrative that tells us that they built a building in a year in the 1800s without explaining the massive supply of water for the horses should be looked at as a lie. Incredible. This is a major failure by the narrator, a massive flaw that now opens the floodgates. This narrative is not possible. Did they think that we would never question this? And now we know that this type of construction is not even close to possible. We are waking up to the nonsense. We are educating each other, building a group of people that are not just accepting lies and actually questioning. We are looking into things, and the more we look, the easier it gets. The more answers we find, and the more truth comes through. And the more that we know, the harder and harder it is to lie to us. Once you know the truth, like I always say, you don't go back to not knowing. You are now awake, and you will take this information with you and apply it to the next story, where they will tell you that a building was built in a year by a quarry owner that never built anything before and never again in his entire life. Do you remember when in episode 36, we went and saw the 132-foot tall Tower Castle, the Altgeld Hall, located on the campus of the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, a castle that was constructed in less than a year, over 125 years ago, which we documented that this construction timeline is logistically impossible, especially in that time period. We also know that the building is going through a restoration project. Buildings from the old world, the previous civilization, were built to last lifetimes, hundreds of thousands of years. They definitely don't need our help, the way that our modern construction does, where our roads are falling apart after 5 years. And these mainstream stories have many hidden clues, just waiting for us to find them. And I believe that we just did. The Altgeld Hall, with the name Altgeld, this translating in German to old money, with a clear nod to the old world, that the name of the building is literally old money. And I believe that we just took this research to a whole nother level, where we now understand that they are using multiple languages to hide these codes within the narrative. And this is going to unlock so many doors for us. So we have the building that is named Old World Money, where there probably was old gold stashed inside when they founded it. And this, of course, isn't the first destruction project, because in 1956, only 59 years after they supposedly built this castle, it got its last big renovation. A big renovation, 59 years after it was built. I wonder what they removed from this castle that they did not want us to see in 1956. And this is when we read the title of the article, proving that we are correct, that there are things in these buildings that are hidden to us, that they are destroying with these renovation projects, where most of the public don't fully understand what's inside or outside of these buildings. That's just not revealed to us. These structures were not built in 1 year by the horse and wagon community. These structures expose the old world, a civilization that was so advanced that it would blow our minds. And they weren't here thousands of years ago. In my opinion, they were here only a few hundred years ago. And all of their buildings, their castles, all of their work is left behind for us to see. And of course, we're not allowed to go inside the old money hall and be a part of these revealings of the intricate decor and gold leafs. A gold leaf? Old money? Old gold? A hidden project? What did they find that triggered a renovation project? Revealing gold leaves, I think we know. And we're just getting started. If I ever find any new information, like we did today with the Old Money Hall, about any other buildings that we've covered, I'm definitely gonna share it with everyone here. Now, for anyone that watches darts, you're gonna know this building very well. The Alexandra Palace, or the Ali Pali. It is home to the World Darts Championship since 2008. If you've seen my first 56 episodes, you'll know that we've just located yet another old world building. The Alexandra Palace was built by John Johnson, another reoccurring AI-generated name, and Alfred Meeson, where it opened in 1873, but following a fire. 16 days after it opened. 16 days after it opened? Really? This is incredible, the amount of fire narratives, because we all know at this point, and have covered the Crystal Palace, that they just threw into this story, connecting the two buildings, saying that North London's counterpart to the Crystal Palace. And we know here that the Crystal Palace also burned down in a fire. The connections that are made within these narratives are incredible. So let's just follow this path of fires for a minute and see where they lead us. And we'll come back to the Alexandra Palace right after. The Crystal Palace had a reoccurring name because the AI says the daughter's name is also Crystal. And they were walking their dog. The dog was probably also named Crystal. And they just realized randomly that the massive crystal structure was burning down. where 89 fire engines and 400 firemen couldn't save the building. How long was the building burning down before they realized it? Nobody saw any smoke? Crystal and her dog were the only ones to realize it. So she walks her dog, finds the burning down Crystal Palace. And the true cause of the fire will forever be a mystery, where we are also told another clear lie, where 100,000 people came to watch the blaze. They told us that within a few hours, the fire was done and the palace was destroyed. So in a matter of a few hours, 100,000 people just hopped up out of bed in 1936 and they ran right over there in the middle of the night to go watch this fire. And this is clearly an AI generated story, when it just throws another fire in the exact same paragraph for fun. In 1866, when the North Transept burnt down and didn't have proper insurance coverage from Geico to rebuild the building. No. This was from the old world, and our civilization today cannot rebuild it, especially in 1866. We still do have a ton of structures from the old world, like the York Cathedral, also located in the North Transept, where they tell us that construction began over 1,397 years ago. Well, actually, they tell us they found it, but the booming 627s. Can you believe that this is what we're being told? The year 627. Are you kidding me? And we're supposed to believe this. A time before paper. There were no phones. There were no power tools for another 1,268 years. Zero training needed, nothing. We are supposed to believe that they had nothing, but they had it covered. And they were master builders at the exact same time. We are told that there's no electricity, zero modern plumbing. All of these things were unnecessary in the 627s. But being able to construct massive cathedrals, that was just embedded in their DNA. Over 1,400 years later, today, we have classes that go into great detail, supposedly, learning architecture skills from the very best teachers of our time period. I don't see anybody constructing this type of structure for everybody to see, but yet they did this so many times, all over the world. And guess what? All of their work is still here for us to see. Could you imagine the buildings, the structures that were here before we were born, that have been destroyed by now? Just look at the size of the doorways. Everything was just massive and over the top to our civilization, but completely normal to the old world. And of course, in the year 741, they know all about this building. But 1,000 years later, as we've shown, that they have no idea who constructed anything. They don't tell us any details about the construction process, how many men, where the materials come from, none of that. But here we go. 741, not 742, 741 on the dot. The church was destroyed by a fire. So we get the nod. And how did we not see the fires before? This is insane, the amount of fires. How can every single one of these old world buildings hold a fire narrative and nobody noticed it until now? These fires are insane, and a very clear pattern that this narrative was just sitting here waiting for us to find it. Egbert's librarian got to work. He started the reconstruction, and thankfully, Ian Bald was there to take over and wrap this palace up, no problem. I couldn't be more thankful that we know the truth, that these stories are just that, they're stories. It is so much more fun knowing the truth, understanding that no librarian just sits around waiting for a fire to then knock out palaces 1,400 years ago, understanding that no damage took place in 1069. And what we see today is the original building. And there were no Thomases of the 1070s getting the repairs done in less than 5 years, for it then to be destroyed yet again. 5 years after that, getting rebuilt again, with perfection of course, very easily, that they could just switch up the entire style of the cathedral. In 5 years, switching it now to the Norman style, switching it up no problem at all 1,000 years ago. Just because the Norman style was just the style of the times 5 years later. The good old Norman style. Anyone switching their homes to the Norman style this year? Anyone know any librarians in the Norman style construction business? So after this gets done 1,000 years ago, during the day, at nighttime, they hop on their donkey and go to sleep in their sheds for another big day of construction. Freezing in the winters, of course, And you're not on the fence still, are you? I'll keep going. Where the new Norman-style cathedral was damaged by fire in 1137. But don't worry, the 1100s had it covered because it was soon repaired. All remodeled in 1154. And this is all fully documented, of course? No. And there were many witnesses? No. Lots of evidence of all of these fires and reconstruction projects? There's none. But just trust them. They know what really happened, and you don't. Yeah, it's not working anymore. A new one was built, all in the Norman style, with ease 900 years ago. When in 1390, the Norman style goes out of style and needs to be demolished because they could be very picky in the 1300s. This was not up to their standards. Time for a new style. 15 years later, in 1405, fully documented, of course, no, this thing was all done and wrapped up with a brand new high altar. 2 years later, the central tower collapses. But don't worry. 13 years later, 1420, the tower is back in business. Oh my, you gotta be joking. In 1829, an arson attack, and in 1840, an accidental fire. And in 1984, York Minster suffered a serious fire in its south transept during the early morning hours, where they made the decision to deliberately collapse the roof of the south transept by pouring tens of thousands of gallons of water onto it. We get this very in-depth story in 1984 because we were all here to see it, and it actually happened. Remember, a fire is a great way to destroy the old world. There's nobody to blame, and they get to collect the insurance check at the exact same time. But the fires before the 1900s, in my opinion, they are nods. They never happened. They are simply throwing it into the narrative to show the hidden group which buildings are from the previous civilization. So for the fire that we actually saw in 1984, they have this incredible narrative and documented accounts with people putting the fire out and all of it. But for all of the other fires, there was nothing. It just burned down, and boom, it's back to normal. No problem over and over. Switching styles if they wanted to, which isn't logical at all. And of course, they have no idea what caused the massive fire. With these ridiculous stats, 80% chance it was caused by lightning. There's a 10% chance it was caused by yet another mysterious arson. But they got away without anyone knowing. And another 10% chance it was caused by an electrical fault, with a 100% chance that they know the truth and are lying. And can we just say one thing before we move on? How many times did we see the name Thomas and William in this story? I mean, I get it. It's a popular name in the 1000s. It was a trendy name back then, but come on. After what we've seen, not only do we get the AI fires, but we also get the reoccurring names. We get Thomas of Bayeux, Thomas Fairfax, Thomas Becket, then we get William the Conqueror of the 1066s. The drawing of the building by William Martin, the brother of the arsonist, which at this point is just rubbing it in our faces. And to top it off, I think this paragraph should be changed from shrines to Williams. Because are we talking about shrines or are we talking about Williams? With William Fitzherbert, St. William of York, which is perhaps associated with St. William's College, we get William de Wickwayne and William Markham. If you ask me, that's not normal or mathematically possible for a single paragraph about a true narrative. It is, on the other hand, 100% possible that an AI generated these narratives. Now, we got away from the original building of the Alexandra Palace. I think for good reason, but let's get back to it now. We know that it also holds the fire narrative, where the story begins with a company name that is definitely AI generated. The Great Northern Palace Company? How many Great Northern Palaces was this Great Northern Palace Company knocking out? In the mid-1800s. They apparently only built this palace and then decided that that was the end of the company, with 0 other buildings listed to their name. We have to just stop for a second and really look at what they're telling us. This guy named Owen Jones, who they used for the Crystal Palace as well, of course, started this project for the Alexandra Palace in 1859, supposedly. A year after that, this Great North Palace company just comes out of nowhere. And we are told that the Palace Construction Company couldn't get the funds to build their first and only palace. Construction materials were acquired and recycled from the large 1862 International Exhibition Building. So they took all the pieces from this massive building that they just didn't want anymore. In my opinion, the buildings both have the exact same material. So they are trying to attempt to explain why this is the case by saying that they just went over to the other one, took the other one apart, and used it for this one, when in reality, they were built by the same old world civilization. So let's pretend it's 2024, and we make a new construction company called Your Everyday Palace Construction Company, and they have zero money, and just start ripping apart the SoFi Stadium. And they build a little miniature version of it. And we all agree that this is a great idea, and totally normal and acceptable. Are we all on the same page that that is ridiculous? Okay, good. Let's continue. In 1863, 3 years later, they begin to try and explain away why this palace sits on top of a hill, which is very interesting because we all know about the hills and how they most likely are just grass, covering bigger structures under what we can see, especially when this is installed into the narrative that the palace sits on a site that stands on a ridge more than 300 feet high. So in 1865, they finally get this project started. They get the job done in 1873, and 16 days later, the whole thing burns down. And 4,700 items. In my opinion, these are old world items, especially when they tell us that they are items of historic value. These items, in my opinion, were never even in this building. They probably still have these items, but we're told they were all destroyed in this fire that happened 16 days after the palace is done. Here is where we find a massive logistical slip-up by the narrator. We were told that the entire building was supposedly destroyed on the inside, saying that only the outer walls survived. And we were told that the palace took 8 years to build. Well, in 1873, the fire took place. They had to clean the entire place up, plan out a new one, and get the job done somehow in the 1800s, before the power tool was invented, and get this reconstruction project done in less than 2 years. A massive slip up. This right here, in my opinion, proves that this entire story is all a lie. This is logistically impossible. We would not be able to come close to getting this project done in that time frame. Yet, in 1873 to 1875, we are told, and we are supposed to believe, that they had no problem at all doing it, just giving us a quick sentence that the palace was quickly rebuilt and reopened in 1875. How many men did they need? Who constructed that one? Who cleaned the other one up? And this wasn't like a few basic drywall sheets that they just had to throw together and call it a day. No. They say the brand new Alexandra Palace, the one that took less than 2 years in the 1800s, before the power tool, contained a concert hall, art galleries, a museum, a lecture hall, a library, a banqueting room, and a large theater. Why are they leaving out massive details for this project? This is incredible. This place even had a horse racing course that they destroyed in 1970, a Japanese village, and other things. We are told that for millions of years, humans invented nothing, but were very capable of building the Milan Cathedral and all the incredible structures from thousands of years ago. And these civilizations that constructed these things, we are told, had nothing. They didn't have electricity, no cars, no planes, no trains, no phones to communicate. Yet, we see star forts all over the world. They look exactly the same. With zero communication, we are told that only 500 years ago, Columbus found America. Yet, there are star forts all over the USA that look exactly like the ones in Europe. We have nothing for millions of years, but so many so-called inventions have just come out of nowhere in the last 200 years. The probability of us having nothing, writing by feathers, riding on donkeys, no power tools, and living in sheds. That is simply, in my mind, mathematically impossible. Oh, did you think we were done with the Alexandra Palace? A fire happened, as we've shown, inside the Alexandra Palace, 16 days after the opening in 1873. They rebuilt the building, as we were told, in just 2 years. Completed in 1875. Now, as a reminder, these old fires, most likely in my opinion, never happened. And they are simply a nod to the hidden group that this specific building is from the old world, built by a previous civilization. Now, there's a big difference between a fire from the 1800s, or as we've shown from the 1300s, which is ridiculous, but there's a big difference from a fire in the 1800s that we cannot find any evidence that it ever took place, and a fire within the last 100 years that we were all around to see and document. And this is when things get interesting. When in 1980, a Haringey council took over the trusteeship of the Alexandra Palace, insuring it for $31 million. As we have explained, a fire from the last 100 years is not only a nod, it's also a great way to destroy one of these buildings from the previous civilization without anyone to blame. Not only do they get to destroy the building, but they also collect the insurance check. It is a win-win for them. And this Haringey Council is worth an investigation, because just 6 months after they insured it for $31 million, a fire started under the organ that completely spread. It destroyed half of the building. Again, the outer walls survived because these outer walls are from the old world and not by us. House fires also don't destroy stone, brick, or marble. It simply doesn't get hot enough, and we've shown this as well. The famous organ was destroyed, even though they were already dismantling it. What are the odds of that? And took our civilization, while we were all here to see it, 8 years to reopen, when in 1873, it took them 2 years. Are you seeing the lie very clearly now? Multiple fires, tons of destruction, and an incredible amount of lies, all just sitting here, waiting for us to pick it apart and expose it to the world every single week. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. I'll be back very soon with much more. See ya.